Toprak Razgatlıoğlu's highly anticipated MotoGP debut has hit turbulent waters, and the drama brewing in the Sepang paddock is getting harder to ignore by the day. The former WorldSBK champion, famous for his aggressive style, late-breaking confidence, and multiple title-winning seasons, has admitted publicly that frustration is creeping in and motivation has taken a hit as he tries to make sense of the Yamaha YZR M1. For months, fans and pundits circled this move like it was guaranteed fireworks. The WSBK star stepping into the prototype world, ready to prove that raw speed and racecraft translate anywhere. But the Sepang preseason test has delivered a colder, more complicated reality. Over 5 intense days, Razgatlıoğlu has been forced to fight on 3 fronts at once: an unfamiliar bike, unfamiliar tires, and an unfamiliar riding philosophy. One that demands a kind of precision that even champions don't just pick up overnight. And the numbers, at least right now, aren't softening the story. Across the test, Toprak's best lap was a 1:58, 326, placing him 18th overall, and almost 2 seconds off the benchmark set by Alex Márquez on the Ducati. Even within Yamaha's own reference points, the gap raised eyebrows. He ended the week more than 7 tenths behind the fastest Yamaha runner, Alex Rins. That's a margin you can't hand-wave away in modern MotoGP, where 1/10 is often the difference between a front-row fight and being swallowed by the midfield. To be fair, context matters. Yamaha's lead reference rider, Fabio Quartararo, missed the final 2 days due to injury. That absence can blur the full picture of where the M1 truly sits, and where exactly a rookie on the same bike should land relative to the factory baseline. But even with that caveat, Sepang didn't look like a smooth launch. It looked like a rider grinding through an early identity crisis with a machine that doesn't reward his instincts the way a superbike did. "This week I learned something," Toprak admitted, "but not much, because I'm still trying to adjust my riding style." That one line says everything. Not much, not yet. And in a paddock that measures progress by sectors and microscopic throttle traces, patience is never unlimited. One of the biggest problems is the tires, an issue that has derailed more than a few talented newcomers before him. In WorldSBK, Toprak built his craft on Pirellis, learning how the rubber talks back when it's on the limit, how the rear steps out, and how to ride the spin rather than fear it. In MotoGP, the Michelin behavior demands a different relationship entirely. "With Pirelli, when a tire spins, it's easier to control," he explained. "With Michelin, when the rear spins, the bike just keeps moving." That's not a small difference. That's a fundamental shift in how you attack corner exit and how much you can play with traction without paying a brutal price in lap time or confidence. Toprak has actually sounded reasonably positive about the front-end feeling, praising the feedback he gets when loading the tire on entry, but the rear remains the unsolved puzzle. Understanding how much grip is really there and how quickly that grip disappears has been a constant fight, and like many riders learning Michelin's edge, he's found comfort not with the shiny time attack moments, but with used tires and longer runs where the behavior is more predictable. "We didn't start strong in the mornings, which frustrated me," he said. "In the afternoon, we found a better setup with older tires, and I felt a bit more comfortable." That detail is telling. Comfort arrived as the tires aged, when the grip peak flattened out and the bike stopped reacting so violently to small inputs. But the moment fresh rubber goes in, the problems come rushing back. "With new tires, it's hard to open the throttle smoothly," Toprak admitted. "I'm used to using the rear tire to corner aggressively in superbikes, but in MotoGP, you have to ride much smoother. The team keeps reminding me, but it's easier said than done." That's the heart of this adaptation. In WorldSBK, Toprak could weaponize aggression, square the corner, stop the bike hard, pivot it, and punch out with controlled spin. MotoGP, especially on the Yamaha, leans heavily on flow. Corner speed, clean roll angles, and ultra-precise throttle application matter as much as bravery. The M1 doesn't always respond kindly to force. It demands finesse, and it demands it every lap. The bike itself is the second major hurdle. On paper, people love to compare top speeds and say the difference between superbikes and prototypes isn't that massive. But the real difference isn't the number at the end of the straight, it's how the lap is built. MotoGP prototypes live and die by micro movements. How quickly you transfer load, how you carry lean, how you release the brake, how early you dare to reapply throttle without triggering a chain reaction through traction control and chassis balance. Toprak has made it clear that braking is still a strength. That's expected. His reputation in WSBK was built on outrageous stopping power and front-end confidence. But Sepang exposed the next layer: long corners, mid-corner speed, and turn-face stability. Those are the places where a MotoGP lap is won, and where the Yamaha, in particular, can either sing or punish you. "I see riders like Alex Márquez on track," he said. "His bike turns beautifully and accelerates perfectly out of corners. Replicating that is tricky when my bike doesn't behave the same. That's not an excuse. It's an honest comparison. Ducati's strengths, turning support, drive, and how it puts power down, make it a very clear reference on track. When you're watching another rider carve a line that looks effortless, and you're fighting the bike to hold the same arc, it's hard not to feel like you're riding uphill. Even the ergonomics are in flux." Razgatlıoğlu has been experimenting with different handlebar setups to find leverage and control that suit his natural instincts. But every fix seems to come with a trade-off. "The new bars give me strength," he said, "but I lose top speed and some cornering efficiency. It's not my natural style. I am learning to adjust because in MotoGP, you need this." That's the prototype compromise in a nutshell. Change one piece and it affects 5 others. Aerodynamics, body position, how you pick the bike up, how stable it is under braking, how cleanly you can transition from lean to drive. In superbikes, changes are meaningful, but the window of behavior is often wider. In MotoGP, the window can be razor thin, and if you're outside it, the lap time bleeds away everywhere. As if the on-track adaptation wasn't enough, the week also carried tension beyond Toprak's garage. Yamaha's new V4 engine program sparked safety concerns midweek, forcing factory riders to stop running while checks were carried out. In a test where every lap matters, that kind of interruption adds pressure across the organization. It changes priorities, compresses plans, and can shift focus from performance to basic validation. But Toprak, to his credit, pushed through the full 5 days of testing. He logged laps, gathered data, and kept working, even when the stopwatch wasn't rewarding the effort. That matters more than people want to admit. MotoGP rookies don't arrive by winning the first week. They arrive by building the foundation, understanding the tire behavior, learning how the electronics react, discovering what the bike wants in each phase of the corner, and finding a repeatable way to improve. Because make no mistake, this struggle isn't a reflection of missing talent. It's a reminder of how specialized MotoGP is. The transition from WorldSBK, where bikes are still tied to production DNA, to MotoGP prototypes is not a straight line upgrade. It's a different discipline. Michelin's sensitivity, the demand for smoothness, the way the Yamaha M1 carries speed, and the precision required in throttle modulation create a learning curve that doesn't care how many trophies you brought with you. And right now, the story of Sepang isn't simply Toprak is 18th. The real story is that the learning curve is happening in public, in real time, with every camera and every timing screen tracking the process. Some riders adapt quickly and the paddock calls it natural. Others take longer and the paddock calls it trouble. But the truth is usually more nuanced. It's about whether the rider and team can identify the exact problems early enough and solve them before the season starts writing the narrative for them. The next checkpoint will be crucial. Testing at Buriram in Thailand, and then the season opener on March 1st, will show whether Sepang was just the first hard chapter or the start of a trend that Yamaha and Pramac can't afford. If Toprak can translate afternoon comfort into morning consistency, if he can learn to trust the rear Michelin without riding on eggshells, and if the team can find a setup window that supports his strengths without exposing his weak points, the gap can shrink quickly. But if the fresh tire struggles continue, if the M1 continues to resist his natural cornering aggression, and if confidence takes longer to build than the calendar allows, then the pressure will only intensify. In short, Toprak Razgatlıoğlu's MotoGP baptism has been anything but smooth. The hype was real, the expectation was sky high, and the paddock wanted a fairy tale. What Sepang delivered instead was a reality check, sharp, immediate, and impossible to ignore. Still, for a rider of his caliber, early adversity doesn't have to be a dead end. It can be the foundation for a breakthrough. The paddock will be watching closely, because the next few weeks won't just shape his rookie season. They'll define whether this former champion can convert WSBK dominance into performance in a completely different racing world.